Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Ashoka University, I, Parneet Shergill, welcome you to this webinar. Hope you're all doing well and safe in the confines of your home. The COVID-19 pandemic has taken the world by storm, forcing us all to adapt to a changing environment. Many of us are confused, yet excited about what the future holds for us. While some doors may close, many others will open. How can your choice of higher education help you cope with changing situations and make you good problem solvers? Acquiring practical skills such as critical thinking, effective communication, leadership, along with technical and theoretical knowledge will be crucial in navigating uncertainties. In this webinar by Ashoka University, today we are going to discuss the importance of liberal education in these times of uncertainty. And who better could we have on our panel today than our guest, Dr. Pramath Raj Sinha. Pramath is one of Ashoka's founders, but that's just one of his many achievements. He has played a vital role in transforming higher education in the country. Pramath is the founding dean of the Indian School of Business, the managing director, 9.9 Group Private Limited, and the founder and chairman of Harappa Foundation. He has also been closely associated with the Vedika Scholars Program, the Young India Fellowship, and the Naropa Fellowship, just to name a few. Pramath is a versatile and entrepreneurial as modern educationists can be. Before I hand over to Pramath, I have an announcement to make. Please keep typing in your questions as we go along. We will be happy to take them at the end of the session. Over to you, Pramath.
Thanks a lot, Parneet. It's always good to be speaking to people about Ashoka, and I'd very much look forward to the next hour. Thank you for inviting me to do this. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. And I hope wherever you are safe and sound and keeping well and making sure that you observe all of the norms that have been prescribed for keeping the coronavirus at bay. I've been asked to talk about the importance of liberal education in times of uncertainty. And I have to say that this is such a time, but in general, you will find that liberal education is today becoming more and more relevant because our times have become uncertain. What we are living in is extreme uncertainty. But from the time I was growing up, things have just become much more uncertain in general. So I certainly am a big believer in the thesis that you in fact need a liberal education to succeed in life, and particularly your generation is going to require this in much greater measure than I did. Let me tell you a little bit about my life. Like many of you, I was a good student in school, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I used to be good in English, but I used to like some humanities and social science subjects, but I was good in math as well and liked physics. So I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with my future. But in those days, what had happened was that the world had become one where if you were good in school, quote unquote good in terms of studies and so on, everybody nudged you towards studying science. So in some ways, others decided what I should do. I ended up studying at an IIT. But interestingly, I studied metallurgical engineering, in which I had no interest. I had to do it because of my rank in the IIT JEE exam. After a lot of struggle through those 4 years in studying something that I had absolutely no interest in, and in fact, I was always very interested in the liberal arts, I ended up finally being able to get out of metallurgy into another area of engineering, and from there to another area of engineering, and ended up doing a PhD in robotics, which was of course very exciting. But when I came out with my PhD in robotics, there was a massive economic recession in the United States, very much like the uncertainty that we are facing now. This was in 1991, and I couldn't get a job. So I did work for some time at the University of Toronto. I moved from the US to Canada because they were still looking for jobs. But then I did a complete switch and joined McKinsey & Company as a management consultant. Post doing my, and I ended up working there for 13 years. This is a person who's done an undergrad in metallurgical engineering, a PhD in robotics, and is now doing business. Interestingly, I went on to create a business school called the Indian School of Business, as many of you know, and then a liberal arts university when I had no prior education in business or management or liberal arts. There is a point to this story, and I'm going to come to that later. But you have to know that you are very lucky that you live in a time where you even have the choice to choose between going off the beaten path of studying engineering or doing a BCom or a BBA or just a plain BA in economics from any public university, to go from there to go to a liberal arts university like Ashoka. Let me tell you why liberal arts and uncertainty go together. And I will refer to my own journey in a minute, because I didn't have the choices that you have. You have the choice. You have the choice to choose whether you want to get this kind of education or not. And I'm sure that many of you have doubts, your parents have doubts, and there are questions about, will I get a job, what kind of career, and so on. Let me take the issue of uncertainty, and particularly the kind of uncertainty that we are facing. There are three consequences. There are three consequences of this uncertainty that I'd like you to think about. Number one, coming out of such uncertainties, and generally coming out of such disruptions like the corona pandemic and general uncertainty that we all face in the world today, the kind of problems and challenges that you as a young person will have to face and deal with as you go into the real world post your education would be things that the world has never seen before. A little bit like corona. We never imagined that this could happen. There are no school book solutions to solve this problem. We are all struggling. So the one thing to think about is how do you prepare for a world where young people like you will have to work on situations, on problems that are completely new? What kind of education will prepare you for that? The second consequence of these types of disruptions and uncertainties is that just as my career changed so many times, you don't even know when you graduate, say 4 years from now, what will be the careers and options and jobs available. I'm now somebody who's working in ed tech. And some of you may be familiar with the term. This is education and learning delivered online. You must have heard of Byju's and Coursera and Unacademy and Vedantu and Topper and so on. These are all, and you've actually done online classes recently, I would imagine, through this crisis, and attended webinars like this one. This is a whole new field. When I was growing up, I couldn't even have imagined that I would be doing this. Nobody would have even been able to dream and say that one day education will be done in this manner. So how do you prepare for a life where your career is going to go through a complete 180-degree turn every few years? For me, my career had 180-degree turn reversals in say 5 times in my 30-year working life. In your case, that's going to become 10, 15 times. Every few years, some new technology, some new revolution in a positive way will take place, throwing up opportunities that you hadn't been ever educated in. Finally, the third thing that these uncertainties bring about is a certain sense of purpose, certain sense of resilience, certain sense of calm and commitment that you need to have to be able to survive all of these uncertainties and disruptions. And where does that come from? And I want to talk a little bit about how a liberal education prepares you for that and all of these three. The kind of challenges you're going to face, the career shifts that are going to happen, and the resilience that you're going to need, the sense of purpose that you're going to need to live through a life of uncertainty. Let me take each of these very quickly, and then of course I'll stop speaking and have a chance to answer some of your questions. So number one, see the problems that are going to come your way. And because you are some of the brightest young people, if you are on this webinar and you're thinking about joining Ashoka, then you must be generally a good student. You know, the problems of this world are rising to such an extent that the best students, you, will be thrown the biggest and the most complex and the most difficult problems. Because if you don't solve those difficult problems, who will? We need the smartest people to work on the toughest challenges. But the thing about these problems is that these problems are problems that have no answer. They are not going to be solved by the knowledge and the tools and the concepts and the ideas that you will learn in the classroom. They are going to require you to take on a challenge or a problem with no prior knowledge. You will have to be unfazed when faced with these, like this Corona challenge. You will also have to deal with what to trust and what not to trust. Today, look at all the information that is coming our way. Half of it is fake. We don't know what to believe or what not to believe. We don't know what is the real cause of things. Where is the problem being created? A lot of people blame China. A lot of people blame certain policies. A lot of people say that certain people were very irresponsible. How do you even begin to start unraveling and understanding what is really going on? How do you think about the implication and the consequences of this? I was just on a call with the board of the Indian School of Business, who's trying to figure out when should the classes begin, because everything is so uncertain now. When will classes start? And how do you plan when you don't know when people will be able to fly, and once they can fly, will they have to be tested, and so on and so forth. My point is that all of these problems are so new, unfamiliar, ambiguous. You don't even know what are you solving for. Complex, very interrelated. Something happened in China and now people are dying in the United States. Poor Italy has lost a lot of people, and now we in India are struggling with it and are in lockdown. In these situations, of course, you need the knowledge. As Parneet said, you need the technical skills. You need the stuff that you need in the classroom. But you need the added benefit of being able to think for yourself, even if you are not taught something. That's what a liberal education teaches you. In a liberal education, the way you are taught, not just what you are taught, the way you are taught is to start from first principles. It is to start by asking questions, by asking the right questions, by not assuming an answer, by not taking something that somebody tells you on face value and just believing it. It's the idea that whenever you are faced with a problem, look at it from multiple perspectives, not just from your own perspective, not just from somebody else's perspective, not just from a so-called expert's perspective, but take everybody's view into account, and then for yourself, think and decide what should be the right way to tackle a problem. Multidisciplinarity is a very important aspect of this, and I will come to that also in a minute. So the first challenge, which is this challenge of ambiguous, complex, unfamiliar problems, a liberal education prepares you by preparing you to ask the right questions, to look at things from multiple perspectives, and finally to treat things with intellectual humility. To treat things with intellectual humility, not get so arrogant about how smart you are that you say, I know what the answer is. When inherently, some of these problems that you're going to face will not have an answer. You will get close to an answer. Based on that, you will take a call, you'll take a decision, then you'll discover half the time it doesn't work, then you'll solve it again, you'll come up with another answer. And that's how things will work. Again, for this kind of world, a liberal education is the only education that prepares you. Even engineering education that I went to doesn't prepare you, because it's very systematic thinking, but it's very black and white. It's like solving 2 + 2 = 4. You know, the answer can only be 4. And you don't really know if there's a different answer. You are so used to Googling something or looking at the back of the book for the answer that when you're faced with a problem where there is no obvious answer, how do you start from first principles? That's what a liberal education will tell you: the critical thinking, the ability to ask the right questions, and the ability to look at it from multiple perspectives. Very quickly, moving on to the second challenge, this whole issue of having multiple careers. Well, guess what? Tomorrow, what is going to happen is that every time a new opportunity comes, it will require you to learn new things, learn new skills. You will be able to do that. You will have to learn that, and you will have to get yourself used to learning completely new fields every few years. But to be able to do that, you have to have a generous dose of a curiosity to learn. You need to be so inspired by this desire to learn from multiple fields that every time something new comes up, it's not that you freeze or you say, oh my God, how am I going to do this? I didn't train to be this. I wasn't taught this. But on the other hand, you have such a strong ability and a desire to learn, and to learn how to learn is what a liberal education teaches you. And the way it teaches you that is that in an atmosphere like Ashoka or any liberal arts school, there's just so many different subjects that you have to study. So for example, in the Ashoka context, everybody has to go through foundation courses. And some of this you may already know. In most liberal arts university, there's a core or a general ed curriculum that requires you to study literature and physics. It requires you to study history and philosophy and math and computer science. It requires you to study sociology, and it requires you to study economics. What this does, it gives you a versatility and agility to say, listen, give me any topic, give me any subject. Hey, give me engineering and I'll figure it out. I'll learn it. I know I can do it. And that helps you tomorrow when you have to suddenly switch careers. Take the example of the current crisis. As we come out of the current crisis, many jobs are just going to disappear. People in my generation, 2 of my best friends have actually lost jobs in the United States. And I'm 55 years old. In today's day and age, that's not a lot. They will find it very hard to switch because they've been working in one field throughout their life. Most of you will start working, say, in about 5-6 years from now, even earlier. Some may be working in 3 years from now. You'll be 20 odd years old when you'll start working. You'll work for about 50 years. Trust me, you will have not one, not two, not three, but you'll at least have 10, 12 different careers in your life. How do you build this ability, this versatility, this agility to learn how to learn, to constantly be able to deal with these shifts in your career? And what's going to really help you is, again, the foundational skills that a liberal education teaches you. Because a liberal education not only teaches you what I said about asking the right questions, but it teaches a very important skill, which is of how to systematically solve problems, how to think through things logically, how to be intellectually honest when you're going through some exercise of understanding. Now, this skill of solving problems in a systematic manner, to think things through logically, will be useful in any field, in any career, in any job, in any role that you play. A liberal education teaches you, very importantly, how to read and write. And they say that in liberal education, there are 3 R's: reading, writing, reasoning. You cheat on the writing because obviously it starts with W. But the 3 R's, reading, writing, reasoning, getting yourself into this cycle is what a liberal education teaches you. When I was giving you the example of my own career, when I was 29 years old and I was working in McKinsey, somebody actually took my document and just threw it into the dustbin because they said I didn't know how to write. And the problem was that nobody had really taught me how to write well, what writing well is about. But if you think about it, we are constantly reading. And today, reading is not just reading, it is watching a webinar, hearing somebody talk through a podcast. So you pick up all this information, then you think about it, you reason through it, and then you transmit it, you write it, or you speak it, or you video record it, and you pass it on to a friend or to a parent or a teacher. Then they react, and then you again process it, and you go through this cycle. Now, no other education model teaches you this core foundational way of reading, writing, reasoning, thinking, talking, sensing, perceiving, hearing, listening, and going through that cycle again and again. And this is the core, the foundational skill that will help you regardless of what happens in the world. And that's why it's extremely important. Regardless of whether you go to Ashoka or not, don't stop reading, don't stop writing, and make sure that you engage in discussions with people on thorny topics so that you can get clarity in your head on how to engage with them. Very quickly, the last one, and this is a little bit philosophical. See, college education was created so that you could find yourself, that you could discover yourself, that you could explore multiple options and then decide what you want to do. This is an option I never had. I told you my story. I got a rank in a JEE exam and I wanted to study at IIT Kanpur because it was the best IIT in those days. But when I got in, they said, no, you can only study this and choose between these two. I didn't even know what metallurgical engineering was going to be, and I signed up to study that for 4 years. Now, guess what? When you come to an Ashoka, you don't necessarily have to fix what you're going to study for the rest of your life, or those 3-4 years that you're going to be there. When you come to Ashoka, you actually come with a view, but you can change your mind. And it's not changing your mind, it's actually exercising a choice. And then you have a number of choices even as you go through the 3-4 years at Ashoka, because you have to choose between electives, you have to choose between subjects. You have very few requirements. A lot of what you have to do are your choice. You have to pick. Now, the idea of having to choose, the idea of having to select, the idea of having to make judgments and trade-offs does a massive amount for your own confidence. It also helps you take a call on what is it that you really want to do? What do you really like? What really excites you? What's fulfilling? What's fun? What's engaging? What would you really like to do? I have had students who come to Ashoka wanting to be a computer scientist and go out wanting to be a writer. We've had students at Ashoka who came in to study English literature and ended up majoring in math. And we have students at Ashoka who say, listen, why should I restrict myself to one thing? Why don't I do English and math? Why don't I do an interdisciplinary major? And often students say, oh, I'm confused. So and so knows exactly what they want, and I don't, and I'm really confused. You're not confused. You have multiple choices and you can't decide. You're lucky. You have a surfeit of choices. And as long as you don't have to choose, you don't have to choose. You can try all of these things. We are not insects. We were not made to do only one thing. We can do multiple things. And by the way, that other person who seems to know exactly what they want, just watch them. 3 years out, 4 years out, they may be doing something completely different. It's not like they have figured it out more than you have. So my last point is really that if you haven't figured it out, if you think you're confused, or if you think that, oh, that other person knows and I don't know and there's something wrong with me, or my brother knew and my sister knew, but I don't know, or your parents are after you, how can you not know? It's okay not to know. And that's what a liberal education says. A liberal education says, listen, it's okay not to know. You figure it out. Come here. Eat this buffet and decide what cuisine you want. Read all the books in this library and then figure out what you want to do. Watch all these people come and tell you what kind of different options there are after a liberal education, then decide what you want to do. And so it gives you the chance to really discover for yourself what is it that you want to do. And even if you can't decide after 3-4 years, it keeps all the options open so that you don't end up like me studying a subject for 4 years that you had no interest in. I'll stop there and I will be happy to take questions. But really, again, want to emphasize that in these 3 areas, whether it's dealing with the complexities and the problems that arise and the challenges that arise out of uncertainty and the uncertain world we live in, whether it is dealing with your own careers and the switches that you're going to have to inevitably make because of changes and technology that is going to drive that. And finally, in order to just have the benefit of knowing yourself and figuring out what you really want to do with your life, there's nothing to beat a liberal education, and especially at Ashoka.
That was so insightful, Pramath. So we have a whole lot of questions here. And the first one being, could you please compare the opportunities for pursuing a postgraduate degree from Ivy League schools after completing your undergrad from Ashoka or another Indian university?
Well, I would say that I will only speak for Ashoka. I think people have been going to Ivy League schools from other Indian universities as well for many, many years. But I will say that the number of people from Ashoka who have gone to Ivy League universities in a very short period of time, realize that Ashoka is less than 10 years old and the undergraduate program is less than 6 years old. But and so if you think about the students that have graduated, that's even what Parneet, that's 3 batches now, right, of undergraduate students that have graduated. The number of these students who are at Ivy League schools, and not just Ivy League, but the top universities of the world, and the previous Ashoka students who came out of the Young India Fellowship, your chances of going to an Ivy League school is very high, are very high. So if you look at the Ivy League schools, we have graduates from Ashoka who've gone to Harvard, to Columbia, to Dartmouth, to Cornell, Princeton, Penn. Beyond the Ivies, they've gone to Stanford, Berkeley, MIT, Oxford and Cambridge. There are students who are actually doing to Brown. I forgot to mention Brown. One of our students is doing a PhD at Brown, student doing a PhD in Cambridge. So I think there's absolutely no doubt in my mind. And because all our faculty come from these institutions, they are able to guide you and prepare you in the right way to make it to make it to these schools, and more than that, to be successful in these schools. So I don't want to compare ourselves with others. It's never good to do that. But I will say that your chances of getting into a top university outside of India post an Ashoka degree are very, very high. I will also say that the world now has its eyes on Ashoka graduates. So they know that coming out of India, some of the best students in the liberal arts, in humanities, social sciences, math, computer science, natural science, are actually coming out of Ashoka. So they have their eyes on you. And it's only going to get better with each year. So those of you who are contemplating joining now, 3 years later, we will be on a much higher stature than we are today.
Okay, so the next question, of course, is regarding the pandemic. So how do you think this pandemic will affect education in the coming times? And will the education process at Ashoka be affected this year?
Well, the education process has been affected, and it's been affected everywhere. So it would be not right for us to assume that it won't be affected. I will say that whatever the effect may be of what the pandemic and the virus will do in terms of disrupting us this year, the truth is that we are making an extra effort to make sure that the quality of teaching and the learning experience does not suffer. So there has been some effect for our students who are currently here because they've had to go online, and we were not prepared. Nobody was prepared, not even the best universities in the world, but we've been able to successfully weather that. In the summer, our courses are going to be all online. That's already decided. Now you could argue that, that is kind of a loss of quality in terms of experience. You can't be on campus, and you can't enjoy face-to-face time with your peers and with your faculty. Well, that's something one can't do anything about. It is the reality we are all facing. But again, what we have done is gone a step further and said, listen, let's make this experience seamless. On top of that, can we use this time to, in fact, bring in faculty who wouldn't have otherwise come because we were so dependent on the classroom model. So now we have access to amazing teachers and faculty who are actually very happy to do online teaching. And so suddenly, on one hand, while our students will be lacking the in-presence, in-class experience, they will get access to a lot more faculty that they wouldn't have otherwise got. Now, whether this will affect the new incoming class and whether this will continue into August and so on when we start, who knows? We don't know. But we are hopeful that India has been able to push off the large numbers. And if we can continue to do that, then I think there will be no real change for the incoming class. But I cannot predict. The worst that will happen is that the first few weeks or months may be online, but I don't foresee the entire semester being like that. Even if it is, I wouldn't worry about it because you can't stop your life. And we are making extra efforts. The last thing I will say is that what is exciting about this is how online learning and experience has taken root. So now I often tell Ashoka faculty and students that, for the student out there, it is now such an exciting time because for you, you can take courses anywhere in the world. Your list of electives just became infinite. And by the way, you can take these courses throughout your life. When I went to school, when I went to college, I didn't even have the chance to switch my major, like I was telling. So this is a fundamental shift that is going to happen. And Ashoka is going to make a big move in this regard also to bring the best from around the world to you in the classroom. And that's the other big change that is going to happen. So I think coming out of this, there'll be a lot of positive change that will happen in education that was not otherwise going to take place so quickly.
Yeah, so very understandably, so I have a question from a student who wants to know how, if they haven't been able to participate in events, internships, and provide a holistic resume, how would their chances be affected? and also about the letters of recommendation, not being able to submit a letter of recommendation. So I'll take that if you don't mind. So as far as your application is concerned, it's not just this year's activities that we are looking at. We are looking at your overall profile. You could have been doing activities or participating in activities in the past, and all that holds good. We completely understand in the current situation, if your teachers cannot submit your letters of recommendation with the proper letterhead, we are accepting that. We've really, adapted the whole, apart from the universities, the teaching part, we've also, the admissions and the outreach team is also completely adapted to this whole situation. So you're most welcome to submit your documents and your letters of recommendation there. Liberal education is slowly catching up in the university level. How do you think it will take, how long do you think it will take to reach school level education, which is still compartmentalized into fixed streams? Pramath, do you want to take that?
Sure. Listen, changing the larger system is going to take a lot of time, because I think the larger system means that we would have to modify the entire CBSE, ICSE, state boards, and so on. Where you do see changes happening is obviously with the new boards, which is the growth of the IB and the IGCSE and so on. So that's already bringing in the liberal education to the school level. I think there will be slowly changes that will happen in the school curriculum from the high school down, but it's going to take time. Somebody I saw on the chat was asking the question of, when does the government or the public system recognize? I don't know if you know, but in the national education policy, the government has actually proposed the setting up of the IILA, the Indian Institutes of Liberal Arts, very much like the IITs. Now that's a big move. And when those start to happen, that will drive, just as IITs drove the science and engineering herd mentality, hopefully that will drive some of the desire in the schools and in the students and the teachers to actually train people for, or give people the opportunity in school to experience truly a liberal education.
So Pramath, you spoke about your own experience with multiple careers. So someone wants to know, to what extent is the undergraduate or postgraduate degree that we take, that we get, responsible for deciding our career choices?
Not at all. I think if you just do a poll of people you know, or just talk to your parents even, I challenge you that even your parents are probably doing something that they never did in their undergraduate education. Now, there are some exceptions. So if they studied medicine and became a doctor, if they studied law and became a lawyer, if they did chartered accountancy and are in finance, I leave that aside. But if you look at people who've done generally engineering or business or commerce or economics or history or English, there's absolutely no correlation between what they studied and what they did later on. You would just not be able to do any kind of relationship between that. What is important, and that's what the liberal education does, is that it's important to have a very broad foundation. It's important to have a very foundational set of skills that are a byproduct of a liberal education. So it's not that you become a historian by studying a liberal education, but you learn all of the skills I was talking about critical thinking, about communication, about multidisciplinarity, about knowing what you really want, and so on and so forth. Now, liberal education does not say that you shouldn't do specialization. We do have specialization. We do have majors, but it gives equal weightage to breadth and depth. It gives equal weightage to foundation and specialization. And what that specialization means is not that you will do that for the rest of your life. That specialization helps you know or learn what it is to specialize. What does it take to specialize in something, so that later on you can specialize in something else, and then later on you can specialize in something else, and yet again you can specialize in something else. So that's the way in which you prepare for a life where you can actually, I like to say that, listen, anyone can do anything, really. If you look at my own life, who would have thought I was going to build universities? Who would have thought that I was going to do education online? Now, obviously, I don't mean it facetiously. I would have loved to be a test cricketer for India, and I can't do that. And I'd love to be a neurosurgeon, and I can't do that. I understand. There's some limits to what I can do. I can't go on to be an astronaut. But the point is that even within what is possible, in the realm of what is possible, anything is possible. And you can truly imagine or dream that you can do anything. And that's what a liberal education, I think, really prepares you for.
And talking of majors, you just mentioned majors. So there is a question which says, how many subjects can you take as majors in liberal arts, and the total number of subjects? Well, I can answer that as far as Ashoka is concerned. At the end of your 3 years, you will have one major and one minor. So that's the basic requirement. And of course, if you go on to do the 4th year, which gives you a diploma, you have the opportunity to either do an advanced major, you could also do a double major, or you could take a new subject as a minor. So pretty much you have a lot of opportunities there.
And that's what I want to again build on, Parneet, that the reason we give you these menu of majors, minors, and by the way, there are also concentrations, is really because it's up to you. We don't want to tell you what to do. Part of your training, part of your education, part of your learning, part of your growth through these 3-4 years is for you to decide, for you to make the call, for you to make the judgment on what combination of these things do you want to do in your life, because in the future, that's what you will be required to do in the real world.
So there's a very interesting question here. You talked about critical thinking and problem solving during this quarantine. When we have comparatively more free time at hand, how can we utilize this time to improve and build upon such skills? Tech-driven self-learning in the domains of one's choice.
Well, there are lots of online courses available, which are very high quality. And by the way, these days, most of them are free. For example, at the educational initiative I run called Harappa, we have a free course called Embracing Change. How do you deal with setbacks, failures? How do you recover from mistakes? So, and lots of people are taking these courses. I'm surprised at how much the consumption has gone on. I myself am participating in so many new webinars and topics that are of interest to me around education technology. I'm very interested in behavior science. So I think I would suggest that self-learning is the best. And if you can find the time, if you're not zoomed out by looking at a screen all the time, then do that, or just go back to plain old reading. But I must tell you that the discipline of spending an hour every day learning something new is extremely important. And this is a good time to develop some of those habits because you're locked down, right? So you can develop a routine. And if you're there at home with your parents or siblings and so on, pick up a piece of news and analyze it, right? Analyze, is what's happening in our country working or not? Is it right or not? If I had one metric to track for seeing how things are going, what would it be? Would it be the number of deaths? Would it be the number of virus infections? Would it be days of lockdown, or would it be new cases every day, and are they growing or not? So I think there's always something to learn from and to apply your mind to, and get into this is a good period to get into picking up one thing and saying, I'm going to try and practice this, and that will become a lifelong habit, mind you.
Okay, so There are a couple of questions. I'm going to combine them because they pretty much say the same thing. Is liberal education in any way associated with the left political thought, and what is the downside of a liberal education?
Right. So this is a very common misconception, and it's been created by this whole idea that somehow liberal means anti-conservative. The whole idea of why something is a liberal education is that when the label was given by the ancient Greeks and Romans, they wanted you to liberate yourself from the confines of the professions that your family came from. It's a little bit like what we are trying to do now. We're trying to liberate you from having to become a doctor or an engineer or a chartered accountant or a lawyer right from day one. Liberal arts in this case and liberal education in this case is to liberate you from the confines, from the restrictions, from the boundaries of traditional ways of thinking and professions and careers. It's not supposed to be left or right. And I think this is a misnomer, because in today's polarized world, we have to say somebody is left or somebody is right. At least at Ashoka, for us, we believe in intellectual freedom. We believe in intellectual humility. We believe in the fact that everybody has to have a view that is well thought through and considered, and they must have respect for the other person also. Now, traditionally in the West, a lot of liberal arts education has been identified with the left. And somehow that tag has also come to India often. I think these are generalities that we should not. That is one of the things about critical thinking. There are enough people in Ashoka who have views one way and another way. That's not what matters. What matters is that in the class, in the classroom, the education that they provide, they are being authentic and honest to what they are supposed to teach, not left or right or conservative or liberal.
So there are a couple of admission related questions which I can take. Is the fourth year equivalent to a post-graduation degree, or one has to pursue a post-graduation after that too? So the fourth year gives you a diploma, a postgraduate diploma in advanced studies and research. Students who are interested in pursuing their master's degree can go ahead, but you're perfectly employable after that as well. The next question is, what kind of an applicant has an increased chance of getting into Ashoka? Well, we at Ashoka believe that each one of you is unique, and we do not have a set, a set number of check boxes, but we look at each application individually. You need to be put in your best, your holistic application, and we judge your application very, very individually. So I think as long as you show interest, you show passions, you've engaged in those passions very deeply, we really value your application. We really look at your life's journey and your overall profile. The next one, I think I've already covered that about the majors. Do you think, given the situation, since the quality of education will be deterred as courses will shift online, students should defer their applications by a semester or a year? Is it worth paying the fees? So, well, neither of us know what's going to happen in the future. We are hoping that we manage to open in the month of August. And it's really very unpredictable, but we're all set to open in the month of August. And I really don't think you should, think about deferring your application right away. You should still consider doing your application. Given the ISC and CBSE exams have not been completed, how will prior admissions be impacted, unconditional offers in particular? So at some point in time, the boards are going to release your results. We are waiting for those results, and the admissions team will take a call once we have a decision from your board. So yeah, we're still waiting, and we will release the results of the unconditional offers once we have your board results. Would the last date to apply at Ashoka be postponed? Not yet. The fourth round is closing on the 22nd of May. So if you haven't yet submitted your application, you still eligible to submit your application till the 22nd of May. Pramath, this one's for you. How do you feel liberal education in India could be a true game changer in the Indian education system, especially post-COVID-19 era?
I think it goes back to the points I made. I think that we have not gotten the best out of our students by giving them an undergraduate education that is too specialized. See, today, even if you go for a liberal arts subject, you want to study economics in a Delhi university or a Mumbai university or even a Christ University, you have to just study economics for those 3 years. You basically study only economics. You're asked to study some other subjects. They are called subsidiaries or, whatever, electives. They are treated as second class. Now, what happens is you are now forcing somebody to not get the breadth. You're restricting them from developing all the the fringe benefits of the education that I was talking about. And so I think we are holding our children back. And if India has to progress, and if India has to really get at the forefront, I think we need liberal education. By the way, everybody asks, why do the same Indians go outside and become very successful? Why are they not more successful here? This is really the issue, because we are all of these folks are actually people who went from the Indian education system and then went abroad and then really got to see what was possible and said, oh, wow, I'm capable of so much more. They got so much confidence that they were unstoppable. So I think that's what a great liberal model. And by the way, think about this. The liberal model is not just a liberal model applied to humanities and social science. You could apply this model to even engineering education. You could apply this model it's really the model that you get breadth and depth in equal measure, and you get to choose. Imagine if you choose which IIT you go to and then you decide what you want to study. Imagine if you went to St. Stephen's College and you decide, no, I don't want to study this, I want to study that, or I want to change from economics to psychology. Imagine what that would do to the confidence and the commitment and the enthusiasm of the students. I think this model has to be inculcated and infused in all educational institutions, not just the ones who teach liberal arts subjects.
So Pramath, as part of the outreach team, we are all the time coming across students like this who think they want to study a particular subject, but eventually when they join Ashoka, they really discover the host of opportunities they have and things they've not even been exposed to in the past. So that's what makes them, discover their true interests. I'll move on to the next question. Does a third-year Ashoka student need to apply for the optional fourth year, like any other student applying from a different university, or can you just take up the? So the fourth year is completely optional. You could graduate after 3 years with a degree, with a BA or a BSc honors degree in the subject that you've decided to major in. If you want to pursue your education further, you automatically go into the fourth year. So you do not have to make a separate application. The next question, your website talks about need-based scholarships. Are there any merit-based scholarships? So there I would like to say that Ashoka is based on the model of collective philanthropy, where all the money that is collected is, we believe in distributing it to people or bringing world-class education into the country and making it accessible to everyone. So the idea really is to make sure a student who's made it to Ashoka and the family cannot finance them, we make it possible for them. So we never reject students on financial constraints, but unfortunately we do not have any merit-based scholarships at Ashoka. The next question for you, Pramath, how would liberal arts education help a student who takes up biology for UG and then has dreams to proceed to do a PhD or take up research as a career?
Oh, absolutely. You are in the right place. That's all I will say, because we have an excellent biology and a bioscience department. Professor L. Shashidhar, who leads that program, is one of the leading lights in this field. We are just setting up a whole school for biosciences at Ashoka, which will make it one of the probably the leading biosciences college in the country. And with that bioscience and with that biology major, you will get that depth and you will get that breadth that I was talking about. And that will make you a better biologist. Imagine today's situation. Look at what biologists are doing. They are, of course, thinking about the biology of the health and the virus and so on, but they have to worry about how fast does the disease spread, which is all about math and computer science and, predictive algorithms. They have to think about the sociology of it. How does it affect people? How does it affect people's behavior? They have to think about the psychology of it. So I think that's the whole point, that as a biologist, of course, you will major in biology. You may be a scientist for the rest of your life doing research in biology, but having all of these lenses implanted in you right at this stage will make you a much, much better biologist.
Could you also highlight how the buzz around data analytics, can we ignore it in the future, and how does Ashoka mix it with liberal education?
Oh, we have a very strong math and computer science department, which is what liberal education is about. And by the way, data scientists have to think logically. And that's what you learn from studying philosophy, for example. Data scientists also have to understand economics and how does data really affect daily lives. They need to learn how to manipulate real data. We have a Center for Political Data at Ashoka, which actually looks at real-time election data and does analysis on that. Data scientists are basically interdisciplinary majors. It's a good question. What do you study to be a data scientist? Is there a BA in data science? My contention is there shouldn't be, because you need to look at data from all of these perspectives. You need to look at historical data, sociological data, you need to look at population data, and that's how you become a great data scientist. So our program is absolutely best suited if you want to have a career. All the specialization on which software to use and how to manipulate data and data visualization and technology, all that you can learn on your own, or you'll do in a postgraduate program that gives you the specialization. But the broad skills that you will get at Ashoka will really help you as a data scientist.
So I think this is a very concerned parent. Yeah, I wish to know that if a student likes numbers, like finance and stats, do you think liberal arts is a better choice than doing BCom honors from a Delhi university?
Yes. See, the question is, BCom, BBA, engineering, law, at the undergrad degree, at the undergrad level, really forces you, cuts you off from so much. Today, your son or daughter is interested in math and statistics and numbers. Tomorrow, they may be interested in something else. Are you doing what you were interested when you were 18 years old? They don't even know what is possible. If you really trust your child, and if you worked hard all your life to give them a great education, why would you restrict their opportunities by making them go to a BCom degree? That would be my question back to you.
So Pramath, someone wants to know if Ashoka offers any study abroad programs and what kind of tie-ups we have with international universities.
Well, lots of tie-ups. And I think that's the great thing about the Ashoka education, that you can actually get the best of both worlds, like I like to say it. We have tie-ups across the world, in Europe, right from Turkey to England, of course, to the United States. People go to Berkeley, to Yale, to King's College. So there's a Sciences Po in Paris. We picked some really nice cities where parents can also go and visit their children. So whether you want to do summer programs or you want to do semester abroad, that's a very active and thriving. Sometimes people end up going to 2 different universities at 2 different times in the year. And of course, it's you're not spending the 4-year fees of sending somebody abroad and getting the best of both worlds.
Okay, so I think we're kind of running out of time, but we're going to end on a lighter note. Could you enlighten us with some of your favorite books? So I think those books behind the ones in your bookshelf are really attracting somebody's attention, and they want to know if you, what's your favorite books?
I'll pick two books from here. One is a book called Half Lion, written by Vinay Sitapati, who's actually a Ashoka faculty member. And you should certainly check that out. And the other book that I have is Sapiens by the famous Yuval, I always get his name, Hariri. And at a time like this, it's important to understand who we really are as human beings and how far we've come. And Sapiens is a great book. So there's two recommendations for you. But you know what? I don't know what you were going to say, Parneet, but I do want to tell people, because I was just glancing through the chat and the Q&A. A lot of people are asking some very fundamental questions about why Ashoka and why. I don't know if you know, but we are doing these beyond the classroom lectures on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 8:30 to 9:30. Wednesdays and Saturdays from 8:30 to 9:30. And we are also doing these scientifically speaking lectures, which is, I don't remember the time exactly, but those are also on, I think they are on Tuesday evenings, if I'm not mistaken. Please make sure that you listen to them. By listening to those lectures, you will know what Ashoka is. What's the quality of our faculty? What is the quality of their teaching? And what are the kinds of topics, the range of topics that you will get to experience and learn? And if you find that exciting, then we are the place for you. If you don't find that exciting, then you're probably thinking about, you shouldn't be thinking about liberal education. But if you found even two, I think we've done 9, we will have done 9 beyond the classrooms by tomorrow. If you find 3 or 4 of those interesting, then you know that you are made for a liberal education, and that's what you want. If you find all of this like, what are these guys talking about? This is not interesting. This is too highfalutin. I'm not interested in all this. Then you should probably go do the commerce or the engineering or the economics degree that you wanted to do. So we are also very keen that people should come to us because they're really interested in us, that somehow it fires up their imagination. I have told many of my friends' children not to apply to Ashoka because, you know, they only want to do one thing. They are so set in their mind that they just want to do programming or they just want to be an astronaut. I say, listen, if you are so clear, and I don't quite believe that anybody can be so clear when they're 18 years old, but so be it. If you are so clear, then this is not the place for you, because all this reading, writing, intellectual, critical thinking, asking questions will drive you nuts, will make you write. I think everybody should write. I think it's the best thing you can be doing. But if you're not interested in writing, if you don't want to read too much, then of course we should not read. So on that note, and to end on a positive note, I would say that I may be conflicted because I'm one of the founders. But my suggestion would be, if you are not sure, just apply. Don't debate right now. Just put your best foot forward. I saw some messages that, you know, I don't have this, or I'm not ready yet. My daughter didn't get time. She was not, you know, listen, just apply. We know how to pick you, and we'll go out of our way to pick you, even if some information or something is missing. Trust us. We do this for a living. We've been doing this for 10 years. I've been doing this for much longer. We'll find you. But instead of debating it in your head and should I not, is this the right place, not the right place, should I do BCom, should I do, just apply, go through the process, give yourself the time. You don't have to decide now, at least apply. And if you get selected, then you decide. But don't shut yourself out from the option. That would be my advice.
I'll add to that, Pramath. I would like to convey to students also, don't self-eliminate. We have a lot of students who assume
Yes.
so-and-so hasn't gotten. So
yeah.
So they just tend to self-eliminate. And I always tell students, let us be the judge of whether the application has to get selected or not. Don't eliminate yourself. Give us a chance to review your application.
Yeah.
So we'll end on that note. Thank you everyone for joining in, and I can end by saying that tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. And without a doubt, a solid education is the key to the future. So thank you so much, Pramath, for sharing your experiences and all your wisdom. It was really very insightful. And thank you everyone for joining us. For those of you who are interested, I'm going to repeat that the applications are still open for the 4th round. For the August 2020 intake, you can apply, and the last date is the 22nd of May. Please visit our website. You have numbers here. Feel free to call, email us, reach out to us if there are any unresolved queries. And I was looking at the number of questions there. I'm sure there are unresolved queries. Write to us or call us, and we'll be happy to solve them for you or answer those questions for you. The numbers and the email ID are on your screen. Thank you so much, everyone, once again. And thank you, Pramath.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe and stay well, everyone. Bye.
Bye.